Hey everyone, I am Marla Holt. I'm an independent contemporary romance author. My debut novel, The Other Lane, comes out July 10th, 2018, which is only 2 weeks away now. Just a few more days, and it will be live out there for you all to read. And today we want to talk about how character development should be the basis for your romantic storyline or romance novel. Last week, in the first video in the How to Write a Romance Novel series, we talked about all the different components that you need to make up a romance novel, and the most important one was creating characters that could go on a romantic journey together. They needed to be able to, you needed to have two characters who started out in separate places but then journeyed into a place where they could seek their happily ever after, or in the terms of a modern contemporary romance, at least maturely enter into a long-term relationship. So what we need to start off with is creating characters who have significant barriers to being together, whether that is physically, emotionally, mentally. If there's some sort of barrier or limit they've put on themselves that they can't be in a relationship, or they can't be in a certain type of relationship, or there needs to be significant barriers that both characters have to overcome in their lives to move on and to successfully enter into a relationship that isn't just doomed. So, and usually in a lot of romance novels, they are a little bit hasty because they have to one of the things that they have to overcome is the fact that they are like fatally attracted to one another, and so they can't stay away from each other, but they haven't worked out their issues yet. So they like try and then fail at a relationship, and then they have to go figure their shit out, and then they can come back together once they've got their shit figured out, and then they can have their happily ever after. So to get to that point, when I'm sitting down to start a novel, one of the main things I try to keep in mind is against all odds. You have two characters who should be very different in many different ways, so that coming together seems like it wouldn't make a lot of sense on the outside. If you were to take these two characters here and here and have people like picture them together, it wouldn't necessarily work. I did this in all of my novels so far. I tried to make significant barriers in, for instance, The Other Lane. Abe is 15 years older than Lane, and there are points in their life where that age difference isn't a huge deal, but it's still a big one. And then they're also from different social classes. There are different races. I mean, so in The Other Lane, my goal was to kind of make them as different as possible on the outside, and then have them connect over more personal internal things, which is, I think I did successfully, but you'll have to let me know that in 2 weeks. So that is one of the first things I keep in mind is like, how are they different? And what are they overcoming as I'm planning out the plot of a novel in my head? Because we have established already that I am a pantser, so I do this all in my head. But if you're figuring out through character sheets and through outlining, that's just fine. Do it the way that works for you. But just keep these things in mind as you're doing it. So you're wanting to think about, like, against all odds, like, what are the major differences in how these people were brought up, in their life circumstances? What major barriers and conflicts do they have to overcome to get together? And that's going to start mapping out your storyline for you as they have to come to grips with each of these things in their journey to being together. The other thing that I like to think about is where do they connect? Because there has to be some sort of shared experience that brings them together in the first place. Yes, they need to be attracted to one another, and yes, they need to have chemistry on the page, but they have to have more than that. Like, it can't, like, that's where you just get purely sexual stories where I feel like you almost just have too much gratuitous sex because the characters aren't actually really connecting on that deeper level. So you need to have something that connects them, at least one thing, preferably more than one thing, but one big thing that connects them on a deeper level so that they keep coming back to one another despite all the things that are different and that all the reasons why they shouldn't be together. In my second book, the Ethan and Juliet, which will come out this fall. I'm working on editing it right now. It's not going as fast as I would like, but we're working on it. In Ethan and Juliet, I was developing this story. I was moving on from the other lane, and I was developing this story a couple of years ago when I was pregnant with my youngest son. And I went to a midwife for all of my kids. All three of my kids were born with midwives, so I was a big fan. I'm a big fan of that model of care. And since, I was pregnant, and this had been my third pregnancy in as many years, I do not have 3 kids under the age of 5, for the record. I only have 2. There was a miscarriage in there, but I was seeing a lot of midwives and doctors and everybody for a few years. So it just seemed really natural as I was developing the second story to be like, well, of course, we're going to write about babies and midwives because that's the life I'm living right now. So I was thinking, okay, so I'm going to write about a midwife. And who is this midwife going to be interested in? And I already had it in my head that I sort of wanted to do kind of like a second chance thing. And so I needed somebody that she was attracted to enough to, do something with initially, but then somebody who also wouldn't be an obvious fit. And so I'm thinking, well, of course, an OB-GYN, because historically, at least in my experience, and this isn't true all the way around, but there can be a lot of tension between midwives and OB-GYNs because they just have such different models of care, and they're competing for the same patients, and there can be some contention there. There doesn't have to be. I know some OB-GYNs who get along very well with midwives, but in this case, I decided to make that not happen, and so Ethan is not necessarily a fan of midwives, just this particular one. So anyway, so I have Juliet, who is a midwife, and Ethan, who is an OB-GYN, and that's sort of where the play on her name comes from in the title, because it is supposed to make you think of Romeo and Juliet. They aren't supposed to be a good match on paper, is obviously, and then there's contention there, but they connect on a deeper level on a couple of things, and there's this backstory that I have so much fun with. I really love this book. So anyway, that will be coming out in October as of this moment. But that's just those things keep in mind as you are developing your characters. What are they going to connect with? What are their barriers? Where do they come from? Figure all of this out before you start putting them together on the page, or before you start really working your outline. Know who they are, because those conflicts in their backgrounds, and those conflicts in the way they view the world, and those conflicts in how they approach their day-to-day life and their philosophy on living is what's going to make the emotion palpable in your story. And part of the whole reason that people read romance is they want to feel that feeling of falling in love over and over again, and they want to feel that hurt for when things don't feel like it's going to work out, and they want to enjoy the the lustful feelings that come from a really good sex scene. They want to experience this along with your character. So knowing your character and what journey they're going to go on to get together is really the best start and the most solid foundation you can have to your romance novel. So if you're working on a romance novel, let me know sort of what you were thinking about as you were developing your characters, how you approached what conflict your characters are going to have, and how they're going to grow and journey together. Drop me a line, comment, subscribe. We'll be talking a little bit more in depth about characters in the next few videos. I have been doing daily check-ins on Instagram, on IGTV. I've been doing 5-minute, just little short daily check-ins every day about what I'm getting done, how many words I've been writing, what I've been editing, the books I've been reading, just all writerly related things, just to sort of keep myself accountable. If you want to join me, check out my IGTV there. I am at Marla Holt Author on Instagram. I am also going to be hosting a little launch party on July 10th on Instagram Live. I will be doing just a little live chat, basically. So come hang out. We'll talk. I'll talk a little bit about the history of the other lane, and then we can just talk about books and romance and questions and comments. And so it'll just be like a little lunchtime launch party. It'll be 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on July 10th. Join us if you can. I'm super excited about it. The Other Lane is coming out July 10th, 2018. It's just in 2 weeks away. You can see the little sunflowers I've got going on back here. Those I got as a photo prop for some of the social media posts that I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks just to get everybody excited about it. You can pre-order The Other Lane now on your favorite ebook platform or on Amazon, and hopefully soon Barnes&Noble. They still haven't quite got that up there. But if you want the print edition, or you can buy the print edition directly from me on my website, marlaholt.com. The first blog post right now, the cover reveal, will have the link to where you can do that. There is still time to read When Abe Met Lane, the prequel novella to The Other Lane, just to get a little insight into Abe's character. You don't have to read it to enjoy the book, but it is just a little bit of something extra fun if you're looking for something to read until then. See you guys later.